The betrayal that changed everything. The connection that shattered my world. The hotel manager called and said, "Ma'am, your husband checked in yesterday in your name with a young woman. Your son asked me to keep it a secret." I replied, trembling, "That's impossible." His voice became tense. "Please go to reception immediately. What we've discovered is worse than you can imagine." Footage, my blood ran cold. It wasn't just an extramarital affair. It was something much darker. But before we continue, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and write in the comments where you're watching this video from. We love to know the reach of our stories. My name is Helen. I am 58 years old, and until that September morning, 28 years of marriage with Daniel. 2 adult children. Comfortable house in the suburbs of Pennsylvania. Devoted grandmother of 2 girls. I thought I deserved this peace. I thought it was finally my time to rest. Thursday, Daniel's call. "I need to travel to New York for work. I'm having some problems at my consulting firm. I'll be back Sunday night, darling. Philip will be spending the weekend with you and the children. You won't be alone. Take this opportunity to rest a little, Helen. You look tired." I was really tired. After I retired, I sometimes found myself wondering if I still had any. Daniel worked so much, traveled so much, and I was just there watering plants, cooking, waiting. I didn't even know anymore. Friday morning. Philip arrived early with the twins. Hugs, kisses. That delightful chaos of children invading the house. Checking his cell phone all the time. "Is everything all right, son?" I asked. "Everything's fine, Mom. Just a few problems at work." I always accepted the answers I was given without. It was my way of keeping the peace. The day passed slowly with games in the backyard, cartoons, vegetables at lunch. That afternoon, while they napped, I sat on the porch with a cup of coffee. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. But something made me press the green button. "Hello, Mrs. Helen Martinez?" The voice was masculine, formal, but there was something about it that put me on alert. "Yes, it's her." "This is Robert Anderson, manager of the Millennium Hotel in Manhattan. Could you confirm if you checked in here yesterday afternoon?" My heart skipped a beat. Did I check in? There must be some mistake. "I'm at home in Pennsylvania." There was a pause, a heavy silence that made my hand grip the phone tighter. "Martinez, I need to be direct with you. Your husband, Daniel Martinez, checked into our hotel yesterday using your documents." He hesitated. "And your son Philip called me 2 hours ago, asking me not to contact you. He offered a considerable sum of money." The world stopped. It literally stopped. The sound of birds disappeared. The wind stopped blowing. Even my heart seemed to freeze inside my chest. "That's impossible," I managed to say, my voice weak and distant. "My husband is in New York on business, yes, but my son is here with me, with his daughters. Mrs. Martinez, the manager interrupted me, and there was something in his voice that really scared me. Please go to the hotel reception immediately. What's happening here isn't just an extramarital affair. You need to see it with your own eyes. My hands were shaking so much that I almost dropped my... Seriously, what do you mean? I can't explain it over the phone. But it involves document forgery, ma'am. And there are security cameras. Please come as quickly as possible. I'm doing this because 10 years ago you helped me when I... Remember? When there was that problem with the audit and you... I've never forgotten that. I can't stay silent seeing what's happening. I vaguely remembered a desperate young man who came to me on... I helped him because I've always helped people. I never expected anything in return. Robert! My voice choked with emotion. Tell me something. My son. Is he there too? Yes, ma'am. He's been waiting in the parking lot for over an hour. In the chair on the porch, the cup of coffee cooling in my hands. My mind was a whirlwind. Daniel. Philip. A young woman. Forged documents. Nothing made sense, but at the same time, in a horrible and sickening way, everything was beginning to make sense. Daniel's constant travels. Philip's insistence on coming specifically this weekend. I wasn't taking care of the grandchildren out of there. They were using me as an alibi. I got up slowly, my legs trembling, went into the house and looked into the living room. Innocent and oblivious to everything. Philip was in the guest room, probably asleep too. York? I grabbed my purse, my car keys, and left quietly. Emergency. I couldn't write anything else. I didn't know what to write. The drive to Manhattan was a blur. I don't remember paying attention to the traffic, the signs. My head was buzzing with questions. What was Daniel doing? Why was he using my documents? Who was that woman? And Philip, my son, my firstborn, whom I trusted blindly. When I parked in front of the Millennium Hotel, my hands were still trembling. It was an expensive and sophisticated hotel, the kind of... But there he was, staying there with another woman using my name. Robert was waiting for me at the back entrance, away from prying eyes. He was a man in his 40s, impeccably dressed. Mrs. Martinez, thank you for coming so quickly. Show me, I said bluntly without beating around the bush. He led me through service corridors to a small room filled. First of all, I need you to see this. He pressed a few buttons and an image appeared on the screen. It was the hotel reception, the recording from yesterday. Smiling. Next to him, a young woman. I couldn't see her face clearly because her back was turned. She was wearing my coat. That beige wool coat I kept in my bedroom closet, my favorite. She had gray hair cut exactly like mine, the same length. Keep watching, Robert said quietly. I couldn't hear the audio, but I saw when the young man typed something on the computer. Daniel signed something. The woman remained with her back to me the whole time, her face always hidden. He checked in pretending to be you, Robert explained. Security number. The woman who was with him introduced herself as Helen. Our receptionist didn't suspect anything because she really... I felt my throat closing up. And my son? Robert changed the image. Another camera, this time from the parking lot. The recording showed the time. Today, 2 hours ago. The image showed Philip getting out of the car and entering. He approached me personally, Robert said. He offered me $20,000 to delete the camera footage and not... He said it was a birthday surprise. That his father was planning something special. But I know the law, Ms. Martinez, and I know people. That wasn't an innocent surprise. $20,000. My son had $20,000 to bribe someone. Fees. Where are they now? I managed to ask. Room 1204, 12th floor. I took a deep breath. I want to go up. Mrs. Martinez? I want to go up, I repeated. And my voice came out with a firmness I didn't even know I... Robert hesitated, but finally agreed. I'll go with you. And Mrs. Martinez? There's one more thing you need to know before we go. Upstairs. I looked at him. My heart already so heavy that I thought it impossible to... What? He moved the computer again and opened another recording. From an internal camera positioned in the hallway on the image showed Daniel and the woman entering the suite. There was a third man with them, carrying a leather briefcase. I looked more closely and my stomach churned. This is Stephen. Stephen Thompson? He was our family lawyer. He handled our contracts, documents, that sort of thing. With his husband and wife. A lawyer. Daniel. An imposter. And a lawyer locked in a hotel suite. Documents, I murmured, feeling the blood drain from my face. Robert nodded slowly. I thought about that too. I didn't let him finish. I was already heading towards the door. Take me there, now. We went up in the service elevator. Robert used his master key to access the 12th floor. With a thick carpet that muffled our footsteps, we stopped in front of door 1204. I could hear voices inside, muffled, but I immediately recognized Daniel's laugh. That laugh that I loved, that calmed me on difficult days. Do you want me to hit you? Robert asked in a low voice. Use the key. I want to enter without warning. He looked at me with a mixture of admiration and concern. The click of the lock was almost imperceptible. Robert pushed the door open slowly and we went inside. With a living room that opened onto a separate bedroom. Completely relaxed. The woman was sitting at the table, her back to the door. And Stephen, the lawyer, was beside her, pointing to something in the documents with a pen. I stood there for a few seconds, absorbing the scene. As if I had entered another dimension where my husband was betraying me not only with his body, but also with my own identity. Then, in the calmest voice I could muster, I said, the effect was instantaneous. Daniel choked on his wine and jumped, dropping his glass on the floor. The sound of the crystal shattering echoed through the room. And the woman. She turned slowly. When I saw her face, I almost fainted. She was a younger version of me. Not identical, but eerily similar. Same bone structure, same face shape, same eye color. Mimicked my hair. Even her makeup was understated, just like I always wore. And for the first time in 28 years, I saw genuine fear in his eyes. How did I find out? I finished the sentence, stepping further into the room. There's still someone with a conscience in this world. Someone you couldn't buy. I looked at Stephen, who was leaning against the wall, with the folder pressed against his chest. You, Stephen. For how many years did you represent me as my lawyer? 10, 12? And now you're here doing exactly what? He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Then I looked at the woman, who stared at me with a mixture of shame and defiance. And you? How much did they pay you to dress like me? To pretend to be me? She lowered her eyes but did not answer. It was Daniel who spoke, regaining some of his composure. It is not? I walked over to the table and picked up one of the papers. But I forced my eyes to focus on the letters. What I read made the ground disappear from beneath my feet. Of attorney that gave Daniel full power over all my assets. My bank account where I had kept years of savings. Everything. And down below, a signature. My signature. Or rather, a perfect imitation of it. I looked at the woman. You were practicing my signature. She still hadn't responded. But I saw the pen and several drafts scattered across the attempts to copy my handwriting. Some are very good, almost perfect. I asked, my voice now firmer. How much did my husband pay you to steal my identity? Her voice. It was different from mine, higher pitched. He said it was just to sign some papers. That you were sick and couldn't come in person. Sick? I repeated, and a bitter laugh escaped my lips. She shrugged. I needed the money. I turned to Daniel, who was now trying to regain control of the situation. 28 years of marriage and you steal from me. You forge documents, hire a lookalike. Bribe our own son to keep me away. It's not theft, he said. And his audacity left me speechless. It's our money, Helen. Ours. I was just making things easier, reorganizing the assets. You never have. You've always left everything in my hands. Facilitate? I felt the anger growing inside me, hot and brutal. The deception, The use of my own son as an accomplice? His hands outstretched in a conciliatory gesture that... Helen, darling, you're exaggerating. Don't touch me, I interrupted him, stepping away. I think for the first time since we met, Daniel realized he no longer had control over me. Silence, who trusted blindly, who put family peace above her own dignity. I turned to Stephen. You know that's a crime, right? Falsifying private documents, fraud. How many years could you get, Stephen? 3, 4? The lawyer finally found his voice. Helen, it was Daniel who came to talk to me. He said you had agreed, but that you were having health problems and couldn't come to sign in person. Liar, I interrupted. You've been a lawyer long enough to know that no matter how similar they may seem. You knew exactly what you were doing, and I'm sure you charged for it. Stephen didn't deny it. He just pressed the folder against his chest, as if that could protect him. I gathered all the papers from the table, including the drafts of my signature. Robert, I called without taking my eyes off Daniel. Helen, no. Daniel stepped forward, but Robert positioned himself between us with a firm stance. Hadn't expected. You're not going to do that, Daniel insisted. Think of the boys, the granddaughters. Think of the scandal. Do you want them to grow up knowing that their grandmother put their grandfather and father in jail? That sentence completely destroyed me. Not with sadness, but with brutal clarity. For years, I was controlled by this kind of emotional blackmail. Think of the family. Don't make a scene. I always had to swallow it. I always had to forgive. I always sacrificed everything for peace. You know what, Daniel? I said in a strangely calm voice. I think about the girls. And it's precisely because of them that I'm doing this. For a man to steal from his own wife. I don't want them to learn that women have to lower their... I picked up my cell phone and dialed 911 myself. The police arrived in 20 minutes. First, 2 patrol officers, then a police car. Robert took me back to the security room while Daniel, Stephen, a hotel employee. I didn't want to look at them anymore, not at that moment. Surrounded by monitors. My voice was steady, my hands no longer trembling. And explained everything with a clarity that surprised me. A woman in her 40s named Detective Morrison. Do you have copies of the original documents to prove the... She asked. I have everything on my cell phone. Photos of my documents, bank statements, everything. It's ironic, thinking about it now, that the very organization Daniel always praised was being... Detective Morrison nodded. I'll need you to come to the station to give a formal statement. But I can tell you that we have enough evidence for at least... And conspiracy. Conspiracy? 3 or more people planning and executing a crime. And the young woman who impersonated you. Your son could also be indicted as an accomplice if it is... crime. Felipe, my son. The pain I felt upon hearing that was different from It was deeper, more excruciating. A mother always expects her husband to fail. But a son? Her own son betraying her? He's in Pennsylvania now, I informed her, my voice faltering for the first time. With his daughters, my granddaughters at my house. Brought me to tears. We'll need to talk to him as well. But for now, let's focus on the arrests made here. When the police went upstairs to get Daniel and the others, I didn't want to be there when they came down. I didn't want to see Daniel's handcuffed face, not because of giving in to that old instinct to protect, to minimize. I was alone in a small hotel meeting room, lost in thought. Philip. 15. He must have been desperate. Knowing that something had gone wrong, I thought about responding, about listening to what he had to say. But what could he say to justify it, to explain it? She lived in Boston and we were very close. We talked almost every day. When she answered, just hearing my voice was enough to tell that something was. Helena, what happened? And then, for the first time since I got that call from Robert, I told her everything between sobs while Beatrice, on the other end of the line, alternated between shock, anger. That son of a bitch, she spat the words. I always suspected him. He was always very controlling, very self-assured. Was Philip involved in this too? He tried to bribe the hotel manager to keep it a secret. I'm going there. I'm going to catch a flight now. Fine, my foot. You're dealing with all this on your own. I'm leaving. And Helen, her voice softened. You did the right thing. I don't know if I would have had the courage, but you did. Philip's calls kept coming. On the 17th attempt, I answered. Mom? Her voice came out desperate, almost screaming. What happened? Dad called me. Said you showed up at the hotel and called the police. Is that true? That's true, I replied. My voice coming out cold in a way I didn't even recognize. Mom, have you lost your mind? Dad's being arrested. Stephen, too. Why? What's gotten into you? What's gotten into me? I felt the anger rising again, boiling. Your father tried to steal everything from me, Philip. He forged my signature. He hired a woman to impersonate me. He was transferring all my assets to his name. You knew all about it. Silence on the other end of the line. A silence that confirmed everything. Philip? I insisted. Mom? It wasn't exactly like that. Dad said it was just a reorganization of assets. It was just to make things easier, to avoid bureaucracy. Philip. 20,000. And you still have the audacity to say you didn't know? It was my father who asked me. He said I would freak out over nothing. That it was better to keep it a secret until everything was. I was just trying to avoid unnecessary conflict. I repeated, almost laughing at the absurdity. My life, and you think conflict is unnecessary? You're overreacting. He's your husband. For God's sake, you've been together for almost 30 years. Misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? My voice rose and I didn't care. Listen carefully, Philip. Because I'm only going to say this once. What your father did is a crime. A real crime. Punishable under the penal code with years in prison. And you were an accomplice. The police will also want to talk to you. I heard him take a deep breath on the other end of the line. You're making a huge mistake. This will destroy our family. I wasn't the one who destroyed it, son. It was you and your father. When you decided I was stupid enough to be robbed, right? Under my nose. I hung up before he could answer. The weeks that followed were strange. The house that had once seemed welcoming now felt empty, and each room held painful memories. Beatrice stayed with me for a few days before having to return to Boston. Are you sure you'll be okay alone? She asked the morning she left. I'll have to be, I replied, trying to sound more confident than I felt. But thank you, B. For everything. My lawyer, Martha, called almost every day to give me updates. Transfers from my account to secret accounts. Risky investments that were hidden when they went wrong. 3 months that seemed like an eternity and flew by at the day of the trial dawned cold and cloudy. The courtroom was packed. The case had gained some notoriety in the region. Local newspaper. Daniel was already there when we arrived. He was wearing a suit, clean-shaven, with that respectable appearance he always knew how to. When he saw me, he tried to approach. But Martha stepped between us. Your client is prohibited from approaching my client. We entered the courtroom. The jury was already formed, 7 ordinary people who... The prosecutor presented the evidence one by one. The forged documents. The bank statements. Each piece of evidence was like a hammer blow, building a solid and irrefutable case. Then it was my turn to testify. Mrs. Martinez, were you aware of the financial transactions your husband... No. He always said he would take care of everything, that I didn't need to worry. I trusted him. And when you found out what was happening at the hotel, how did you feel? I took a deep breath. I felt like I was being deceived, not just in the last few. Every time I signed a document without reading it every time I let him manage everything because he understood. And the worst part wasn't losing the money. It was losing trust in someone I loved. After the testimonies, the defense and the prosecution presented their closing arguments. Then the jury retired to deliberate. We waited for almost 3 hours. Finally, the judge called everyone back. The jury had reached a verdict. The silence in the room was absolute when the jury foreman He held a piece of paper in his hands, and I stared at that piece of paper as if my life depended. Because in a way it did. On the charge of falsifying private documents, he began. The jury finds the defendant, Daniel Martinez, guilty. On the charge of fraud, the jury finds the defendant. On the conspiracy charge, the jury finds the defendant guilty by a vote of 6-1. Mr. Daniel Martinez, this court finds you guilty of the crimes you are accused. You will face a prison sentence of 5 years. I order the immediate return of all property taken from the Helen Martinez, plus compensation for moral and material damages. He banged the gavel. Session adjourned. I collapsed onto Beatrice's shoulder, crying with relief, but also with joy at having had the courage to fight. People came to congratulate me, to hug me, friends, neighbors. You are an inspiration, an elderly lady with white hair. My husband robbed me years ago, and I never had the courage to report him. But you gave me the strength to at least consider that possibility. I used part of the $200,000 settlement to do something I bought a ticket to Italy. Not for 2 months from now, for 2 weeks from now. Beatrice asked. Don't you want to wait a little while? Process everything that's happened. I've processed enough, I replied. Now I want to live. Painting the sky orange and pink. I picked up my suitcase, went through immigration. An Italian woman in her 40s named Sofia, holding a sign with my name on it. Benvenuta! She exclaimed, embracing me as if we were old friends. The road to the village where I would be staying took almost. Winding through hills covered in vineyards and olive groves. Life. When we arrived at the village, I was amazed. It was like stepping into a postcard. Stone houses. A tranquil silence broken only by birdsong. My accommodation was a small house that the innkeeper had. It had a cozy bedroom, a small living room with a fireplace, and a balcony overlooking the sunflower fields. It's perfect, I murmured when Sophia left me there. I sat on the porch with a glass of local wine I looked at the stars, so many stars, far more than I could see in Pennsylvania, and felt something. Peace! The following days passed in a delightful routine. Walk through the fields. Visit wineries where I learned about wine production. I attended Italian cooking classes, where the nonna who taught them treated me like a granddaughter. Put love into the dough, she would say. Put love into the dough. I met other solo travelers. Michelle, a 50-year-old American who was going through a divorce. Karen, an Australian who had lost her daughter and was traveling to. Emma, an English woman who simply wanted to have an adventure before she got too old for it. We were all in some way healing wounds, searching for ourselves. One evening, we were all having dinner at a small village restaurant, and Emma raised her glass. A toast to the women who had the courage to start over. Midway through the trip, I received a call from Martha. But I have news. Daniel wants to make a deal to reduce his sentence. Returning everything and accepting all the conditions. He wants to know if you can write a letter to the judge. I stood silent for a moment, gazing at the golden fields through the window. He is sure? Absolutely. He needs to serve the sentence he received. He needs to understand that actions have consequences. After I hung up the phone, I didn't feel bad about the decision. I didn't feel like I was being vindictive or cruel. And to all the women who might one day be deceived by men. Price. When my trip ended and it was time to return to the United. But it was different from the sadness I felt before. It wasn't emptiness. It was longing for a place that welcomed me when I needed it. Sophia took me back to the airport. "Are you coming back?" she asked. "Yes, I will return," I replied confidently. On the plane back, I reflected on everything. On Daniel serving his sentence. On Philip trying to rebuild his life. On my granddaughters who would continue growing up. And about me. About the woman who discovered at age 58 that it was never. When the plane landed in Philadelphia, Beatrice was there waiting for me. Along with Philip and the girls. My heart skipped a beat. I looked at my son holding his daughter's hands and saw genuine humility. True remorse. "They insisted on coming," he said as I approached. "Grandma!" the girls shouted, running to hug me. Feeling that pure and unconditional love that only... Then I looked at Philip over their little heads. I didn't say anything, just nodded slightly. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. But it was a start. The realization that just as I was starting over, and perhaps, who knows, one day we can rebuild something. But something new, more honest, based on mutual respect and not on emotional debts. To fight. Demand respect. Start over. Find your own voice. For all the women out there, if you are going through something similar, know that. Don't be afraid to report abuse. Don't let love, or what we think is love, blind us to. You are stronger than you think. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to the channel. Leave a like. And tell me in the comments which part left you speechless.